Oh yeah.
Alright. We're here.
Am I supposed to answer with video or just answer?
You're just meant to answer.
Yeah, I think just answer is fine.
Okay, whatever. I just clicked on one.
Did it. I need to put exciting text up on the screen so that people will know who the exciting wizards are.
Hooray!
Yeah, absolutely.
We have like a 15-second echo or something absurd going on right now.
Really? I don't hear it.
I don't hear anything.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's perfectly fine for me. Like, said sounds fine. Jarvis hasn't said anything as per usual.
Is Jarvis on the call?
Standard
Yeah.
Jarvis.
Yes.
Standard services.
Jarvis, we can't hear you if you're trying to say something.
Maybe Jarvis is the gently blowing breeze that we're now hearing? No?
Jarvis is an interpretive representation.
How did you do that? It was working before, and now it's all gone.
And now the things aren't working.
Yeah.
Oh, look, I'm going to kill all his creatures now. This is good.
Are you're in the standard D, right, Seth?
You betcha.
You're doing the ramping? Have
I'm
you still
always
like not
ramping.
lost a match in like the last 10 years or something like that?
Yeah, I haven't lost in a really long time.
Okay, excellent. So you're XO?
Yeah, I'm 1-0 in this one. I 4-0'd the one earlier.
Yeah. I 3-1 that one, I think, and I'm 1-0 in this one.
And I'm just getting some battles in between studying this insurance. So.
Right. I mean, I know that you beat everyone who is not like the Stone Master that is Bing, who just actually cannot lose.
Hello?
Like, hi.
Hi, Jarvis. Hello.
Yeah, Bing or Lucindo. I can't beat those guys.
What's a Lucindo? I mean,
Lucindo's
obviously
the dude
He's
online.
some Brazilian guy.
Yeah, I've never seen him lose in my entire life. I don't know how he lost in the finals.
Oh, he was the Esper in the finals?
Yeah, it had to have been a fluke.
Well, he lost to like Red Green, and I don't know, I sort of skimmed those games. It was like, it looked really depressing. Like,
Yeah,
I
I
played
couldn't
some
believe he
Esper.
lost that deck.
I played some Esper, and it's really hard to lose to Red Green.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, the guy ran pretty good playing Red Green, but I was still like blown away that he lost.
I could make 2 Geists of Saint Traft here for double the power.
That sounds optimal.
Yeah, I mean, we'll attack for 12. Like, I don't see how we could win. I'm playing
You
Boyd,
guys-
by the way.
Do you want to just smooth until Bing is here, and then we'll do like the
I
real
don't know.
introductions and get down to business?
I don't know when exactly he's coming, and my impression is that his set has stuff to do, so like we probably shouldn't hold him
Okay.
around too long.
No, I've got the full hour. I blocked it out. I blocked out a full hour of time for you.
Well, let's do some introductions then.
Okay, well we have one of the most powerful wizards I think I've ever had the pleasure of meeting, the mighty Pro Tour top 8 competitor Cedric Phillips.
Yeah, that's me. I'm so busy.
Yeah. Said you are still streaming, is that correct?
I'm not streaming today just because I'm studying in between rounds, but yes, I do still stream.
Right. So Cedric, you can find Cedric at www.twitch.tv/CedEP, is that correct?
That's correct. 2 Ds.
Yeah. And then we have the standard wizardly accompaniments of Jarvis Yu and Joan Ribs, a.k.a. Stephen Flavel. You can find both of them. I think we've had their Twitters up here before. Jarvis, your Twitter is like JKU something? Is that correct?
06.
JKU
JKYU.
JKYU? I'm sorry, I'm a terrible person.
I agree.
Probably I should have killed Trouble Biker there and killed him, but instead I decided not to kill him. And Steven, I don't know what your Twitter is. Like, you're just going to have to tell the people it's like 9 numbers or something.
Yeah, it's 931243732. How do you not remember that?
I take it, man.
Yeah, what are you, stupid? It's really easy to figure out, okay?
One of my best friends in middle school had that as his BattleNet account, so every time I wanted to message him, I hadn't worked out that I could add him to my friends list and just, like, message friends. So I had to type out 931243732 every single time. That's why I have it memorized.
Well, I know how to both spell and pronounce Vandermont backwards, so
Must be
I'm not
so
really in it. Oh, Cedric, you appear to have disappeared into the cave of Jarvis. I don't
Nevermore?
know. Which?
My opponent just cast Nevermore against me.
I don't know what that
is he
card is.
named?
It's Meddling Mage,
It's
right?
Meddling Mage on an enchantment.
Oh. I was thinking it was like...
Yeah.
I was thinking of like that one with no casting cost, like the 0 mana like splice spell.
Yeah, sure. It named Slagstorm, which happened to be correct. But it's a good thing I still had all these whip flares, so...
Got him. How are we? What are we boarding against Esper, Jarvis? Do I get to bring in this Consecrated Sphinx? Because I don't enjoy anything quite as much as just beating them with a Consecrated Sphinx.
You do. You get to cut these gut shots.
Yeah. I mean, it's like -2 gutshot, -2 snag, and then do I get to cut some like pants or something? I probably want all these pants.
Classic
Like-
pants.
I would cut Stalker versus them, possibly.
Okay, that seems fine. Like just because it dies to curse. Do we want sabotage? Like they're gonna have bomb and probably nothing else. Well, I
I
could
don't
probably
know,
cut
like-
image. That seems pretty terrible.
Yeah, Image is pretty bad.
Oh, post-combat Thalia with your champion of the parish. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough deck to play, man. One-away creatures.
That's one way to do it.
Yeah. I need to have 2 more cards in the deck.
Holy cow.
What happened? We lost him. He's in a cave.
I think you are the person who was in the cave, or possibly it's Jarvis. I don't know. Someone's going into a cave and coming back
No,
out again.
I'm pretty sure it was Cedric going into the cave.
I'm in the cave now?
Yeah.
Yeah, we put you in the
Okay.
cave.
Am I out
Well,
of the
do
cave or
you-
still in the cave?
You're fine right now.
Okay, good. I'm glad.
But it,
Do you live at an airport, maybe?
Well,
I can't say that I
I don't
do.
know. Why don't we just like launch right into it? The events this past weekend were it was the Star City in Phoenix and the 2 MODO PTQs. Is that correct? Like nothing else of consequence happened anywhere in the entire universe. Like those were the only things anyone should care about. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct, sir.
I feel like it was a lame weekend.
Yeah. I don't know a ton about what happened in Phoenix. I sort of looked at the deck list. I know there were a million Delver decks in Legacy because people have figured out that if you just take Threshold and upgrade all their creatures. Like, I was thinking about this the other day, and instead of, like, we used to have Nimble Mongoose and Werebear, and now we have Delver, which is just a 3/2 regardless of how many cards are in your graveyard, and Tarmogoyf, which is just bigger than Werebear all the time, like up to and including turn 2. So we basically, like, it's the same deck, it's just upgraded slightly.
Okay.
Does anyone who actually knows anything about Legacy, like have you played Legacy somewhat recently, said, right? Like you still actively attend events? Is this accurate?
I know
Like,
a lot. I know a lot about Legacy. So, what is your question?
Is the modern Delver the same as like the Threshold of yesteryear?
Yeah, I mean it's like the same concept, but the concept is just...
I would describe it as the same deck, actually. Like, essentially.
It's just it's the same concept of it's a blue deck that doesn't have a ton of resources. It's a card selection deck, and it's just like purely a card selection deck with very efficient threats, not a lot of lands, that sort of thing. But they're basically it's just updated from 7 years ago. But the cards are obviously better now. That's all. Canadian Threshold's been going through changes. I mean, how long has that deck been around? Wasn't that deck around for the first Legacy GP, like 05?
Something like that. I don't know. It's always kind of boggled my mind that it somehow turned into Canadian Threshold. Like, I'm not aware that Canada actually did anything magical with it, but
No,
I like
apparently
that.
that's our claim. Apparently that's our claim to fame.
Dave Kaplan built it.
Yeah, I mean, I know Kaplan. Like, I think I may have been at those events that Kaplan was at. But, like, I don't know him well or anything, but I know of him. I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically the same deck. I don't think it's the best deck in the format because I've never thought the Canadian Threshold type decks are the best deck in Legacy. But people just can never figure out how to beat them or attack them appropriately. So it just keeps on winning.
I mean...
Well, how do you beat them?
Sure, yeah, give us the lowdown.
I mean,
Like
I would
goblins.
just be playing Goblins in Legacy because I think it's
Yeah.
I think it's far and away the best deck if creature decks are running rampant and keeping combo decks under control, which Maverick and Threshold have been doing. But everyone's Goblin deck is just built like very poorly, so no one really wins with it. So
Those who are not watching the stream did not get to see me raise both arms to the air triumphantly when you said I should be playing Goblins, but, what was I gonna say?
well,
Like,
everyone thinks
okay,
everyone thinks that like Goblins is like a really like linear, easy deck to play because it's just got a
Yeah.
bunch of creatures.
people do think that. I mean,
Yeah, and it actually
I-
has like very difficult decision trees, and you have to know when to wasteland and when to port and like what to matron for and when to incinerator. It's actually a very difficult creature deck to play, so I'm not surprised that no one's doing well with it. But it's also not being represented very much either.
yeah, I mean, people just can't get around the fact that if you play creatures and attack, like, your deck must be really easy because it's really easy to attack with creatures, you idiot. So, man, Goblin Piker with Flash is, like, actually unreal against this deck. They just can't beat it. Like, I just put a Goblin Piker into play, and I'm going to equip it with Sword of Warranties and hit him for, like, 90, because his hand is mono sorcery. Like, it's kind of silly.
Oh, nice deck.
Yeah, I mean, was, etc.
Very powerful stuff.
Yeah, a mighty wizard. I'm curious as to what you... Okay, so I guess you think goblins? Man, I fucking love me some goblins. That's really the only thing I have to say about that. Like, goddamn, let's do the goblins. Let's do it live.
So, I feel like the problem with the Goblins decks right now is they don't nearly have enough Moloch Fanatics in them. Instead, they have shitty Pile Driver, which doesn't actually do anything.
I would agree with you. I've been playing 4 Mog Fanatics and Goblins ever since like Delver made its way into Legacy, so for at least the past 6 or 7 months. But like your assessment is correct. No one should have Pile Driver in their deck. If anything, they should have just one to matron for.
Yeah, it seems like one is reasonable.
Especially because Spell Snare is like a really powerful card, so there's no reason to have Pile Driver in your deck anyway.
Fair enough.
But like you should have access to some Tarfires, and every Goblins deck should have like Wart Bogart Auntie in their deck to tutor for, so that you can go like super long and grindy. And the entire deck needs like a rehaul, but yes, long and short of it, there should be a lot of Mog Fanatics in your deck and no Goblin Pile Drivers.
That sounds exciting. That sounds like not only a good Goblins deck, but a Goblins deck I would enjoy playing. I know that I am lifetime undefeated against you with Goblins, so...
That's true. That's so true. I'm so glad you've never forgotten that.
I mean... It's, like, I haven't actually played that many live events, so, like, you forget, while you were mashing all the things, I was just some dude who played a bunch of MODO and then played a bunch of Magic, and was like, this isn't that great, and stopped playing, basically, so... That's what you get. I don't know. I just thought it was funny because your deck was mono things that kill goblins, and you just didn't get there. Like,
yeah,
wasn't good enough.
I lost to Goblins twice in that tournament, and then drew against John Sane, and I wanted to kill myself.
I mean, I played Satan, and he punted the match against me. Like,
Weird.
He didn't end up losing. He went to the draw, but he just, like... Did you know Satan at that event?
I knew of him. Steve State and I have a very long history.
I see. Well, he, like, apparently hadn't been playing Magic for, like, 3 years or something, so he just didn't know what his deck did. And then...
Yeah,
like,
he had no idea what his deck did.
Yeah, he would cast Flash, and then if his opponents didn't concede, he would, like, go into the tank for 5 minutes. He'd be like, I don't know how this works. Like...
I think someone taught him.
Yeah.
Eventually he figured it out.
Yeah, I mean, he figured it out, but... And he was really
he won
nice
the tournament. He won the
Yeah.
tournament, of course he figured it out.
So his hand is Day, Sun Titan, and I don't know the other one? I think we're just countering this.
Your opponent's deck sucks.
I mean, it's Boyd playing a Sun Titan Esperlis. Oh, I don't have any cards in my graveyard. Deal with it! Snapcaster! I'm really smart!
Can you guys hear me okay? Or am I still in the Echo Copter?
You're still in the Echo Copter, but like... You just get to that Snapcaster there, Chief?
No, just the Echo Copter is really funny, that's all. Also, you casting Snapcaster with nothing in the graveyard is also funny.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was pretty sweet, so like...
Ooh, we have a leak target.
I feel like if you were announcing a baseball game in the 60s, your audio quality would make a lot of sense, Bing.
Yeah,
That's basically where you're at.
Excellent.
Yeah. We can hear you, though. And, like, if you get that voice on, then, you know, I think we'll be really coherent.
I have another headset. Let me try that instead.
Sword him, baby. Give him the sword.
Oh, I should kill this one? He's been rude, like he should get out?
Yeah, give him the sorting of a lifetime.
I'm trying to determine if I want to make him have to Wrath next turn.
How many cards does he have? 1?
He's 3. He has Wrath, Sun Titan, X.
Oh.
Like, he Sun Titans and he dies? I think he has to Wrath anyway.
You have a creature in the bin?
Yeah, I have a guy.
Okay.
I think I just say go. Fine. That Snapcaster was not my finest moment, but I was distracted. So, do we have the Bing? Like, has everyone arrived?
Yeah, Bing's here, but he's playing around with his audio a bit.
Sort of.
Yeah,
here.
we'll give Bing a few more minutes.
Let me actually try and pull up, like, what the lists were from Phoenix.
So, how many of us top-8'd the MODO PTQs? Did, like, we all do that? Pretty much? I didn't enter, but...
Define we all. I mean, I didn't play.
Okay, so 2 of us didn't play.
I
Cedric
also
was
did not
playing
play.
Some sort of awful vomit pile full of forests in the first one.
Yeah, can we act like Saturday didn't happen?
He top-8'd the second one with Relic Bees, though. Oh,
so we're like 3 out of 4?
Yeah.
No, I didn't play.
Yeah,
the
so
people who
so
played.
you don't count for the denominator.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Also, my opponent just tried to equip a Phantasmal Image, so...
Dude, I just,
Well,
like...
That's an interesting line of play.
In
Was
my
it a
opponent's main phase, with 0 cards in the graveyard, I am at no juncture allowed to
You can't
complain.
judge?
Yeah. Okay, he's dead. Alright, very good. Still had all these Swords of War in peace.
Yeah. Oh, look, a
yeah.
mighty weapon.
Yes, indeed, the mightiest pants that have ever been. So yeah, there were MODO PTQs, and people did pretty well in them. I talked to Seth a little bit about this while he was playing, and like the general prevailing opinion, as far as I'm aware, is that the MODO PTQ is a slightly more challenging animal than the live PTQ. Not that they're like a different beast or whatever, but just like they're going to be better attended and probably attended by a slightly better quality of player than a live PTQ. You were saying you hadn't really felt that way. Is that accurate, Sid?
So my opinion on MODO PTQs are, a lot of people find that they are like more difficult than live ones. I don't think that one is really more difficult than the other. I think the only real difference between the two is that a MODO PTQ is just longer, so you have to run good for a longer amount of time in the tournament. Whereas an IRL PTQ is probably like 7 or 8 rounds, a MODO PTQ is typically 9 or 10. But besides that, I don't think that there is much of a change as far as the level of difficulty is concerned. So I don't. When people say that, like, man, you want a MODO PTQ, that's like a big deal. I don't really think it's a bigger deal if you win any PTQ. But that's just what I think.
Can you hear me better or worse?
I can hear you.
I mean, I think it's no worse, so...
Yeah, I think it's fine, Bing.
Yeah. I don't know. I sort of agree. I agree that I think the difficulty, like your chances of winning a Magic tournament are very closely linked to how many rounds you have to win. Like I think a 9-round event is much harder than a 6-round event, like almost completely beside who's playing in it. Unless there's like a vast player disparity, but like just winning more rounds equals more harder, basically.
That's true. Go ahead.
I think that the average paper player is just worse than the average Magic Online player. I think you have a lot fewer, and certainly I have by no means extensive paper PTQ experience, but I have some. And I've just seen that I'm way more likely to play a brick deck in paper than I am online. I think the metagame is more streamlined, and just by the nature of playing online where you have so many decks available to you and you can build them so easily, that the Magic Online player is more likely to have kind of a stock deck that is closer to a Tier 1 deck than a paper player.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I agree as well. I don't know.
Occasionally you have a deck that just wins like 80% of its games, and how many rounds doesn't matter nearly as much as if there's like 2 other people in the tournament who are playing the best deck too. Once you get to an absurd win rate, like it doesn't matter how many rounds of Swiss there are so much. I think there's something to that. I don't know. I've been in a few formats where I've felt that way. Like I don't care at all how big the tournament is. I just care if there are like 2 or 3 people who I'm going to see in the finals who are playing a deck that can actually beat my absurdly good deck.
I mean, that's possible. I would consider that. I would consider that to be like...
I had an 80% win rate with Angry Dog. I had an 80% win rate with Pyromancer Ascension at the beginning of the modern format. So like it's happened.
In fairness, before you guys reply to that, like before non-Steven people reply to that, I don't think I've ever seen anyone win as many matches consistently for like the extended season as Steven did with Blue-Green Storm. Like,
Blue-Green Storm like, I didn't even have that big a win rate with.
But he actually won like every single tournament he entered for like 3 weeks. So, there is something to what he's saying. Like, anyway, sorry, that's all I have to say about it.
Well, I kind of look at PTQs the same way as basically he said. Like, it gets to the point where I'm so well tested with a deck. For example, like I was with Dredge at GP Oakland, where it doesn't really matter what my opponents are playing or anything like that. I just don't think I'm going to lose. So, you know, at that point, it doesn't even matter how many rounds there are. It's just like I don't want to play against player A, player B, player C, because like that person's competent. That's the only thing that matters to me. Like a large round tournament, you can't control, so it's not something that I worry about.
I guess my question is, do those formats exist anymore? I mean, if you look at Standard now, I mean, even though Delver is dominant, you know, you do have a pretty open metagame with Delver and Red Green Aggro and Red Green Ramp and Blue Control and, you know, Esper Spirits.
You can still be better tested than your opponents and just know your deck better.
Yeah.
My impression of Standard is it's like a 60% format where there isn't a huge edge. Like when I picked up Pauper, though, a few months ago when I came back to MODO, I was winning 80% pretty easily. There are formats with more and less edge available. And like the block formats as well, at the beginning of Innistrad Block Constructed, it was fairly easy to get an 80% win rate, I think.
Right, but by the time you get to PTQ season is kind of pretty far into the format life, right?
Yeah.
Like when you were talking about having an absurd win percentage with Pyromancer in Modern, by the time that Modern actually percolated down to the PTQ system, you had decks that were very good and dominant for exactly 1 week.
I mean,
It was
I think
also
I
a different-
9-0, 18-0 gamed PT, no, not a premier event on MODO the same week, and that there was a GP or a something or other that I was watching televised, and people were just playing absolutely terrible builds of every deck. So I think there are, like, occasionally the formats with a whole lot of edge available. I don't think that this standard format right now is like that, but maybe the next, like PT Barcelona is going to be fairly soon after Switch in the block constructor format. You may be able to get that sort of edge there.
Yeah, I think that it's possible to have those sorts of edge. Oh my God, someone's ringing.
Sorry, guys.
Make it stop.
I just don't think that it's going to be relevant to the average PTQ player very much. Like, yeah, occasionally you're going to have a format broken, and like your deck will be way better than everyone else's, or you'll have tested it a ton, or you'll just really know what's going on, and then you won't care. But like in those situations, you just don't care, so they're not even really relevant. Is kind of where I'm going. Like, yeah, they exist, but I don't think they necessarily play into what we were discussing earlier. Like, they're just sort of a consequence of playing a ton of Magic, and like playing, sort of grinding the amount that I think everyone here has at some point in their wizarding career.
Although,
Well,
to be fair,
those
last
formats
week,
with this. Go ahead.
I was just about to say, last PTQ format was Modern, and there's that guy that came out of nowhere with Red Green Tron, and basically created a Tier 1 deck that was not discovered, in the basically the year existing before then.
That definitely
Was that what you were
happens.
saying?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, like, I think that, the formats that you're looking at, that you guys are talking about that are, like, really exploitable as far as a skill advantage are just always going to be the older, more eternal formats, like a Legacy, like a Modern, like an Extended. It'll never be Standard because when the skill differential is that high, that's when the attendance is down. That's why, a deck like Caw-Blade the cards had to be banned, and stuff like that. Like, they want Standard to be basically how it is right now, which is, like, it's really not terribly skill intensive. There are some decisions to be made and that sort of thing. Don't get me wrong, but the older formats, like a Legacy, like when Dark Depths was the best deck, and stuff like that, those are the really skill intensive formats. That's where you can have a gigantic edge over people, like in the skill department and the deck list department.
I agree.
I agree too. I mean, like the Maverick mirrors that we're watching at the Invitational, where I was just like the Maverick. Well, yeah, I mean, but when you see very good players play against each other, or Stoneforge on Maverick, I mean, there are plays that people make that you don't realize why they were good until 3 turns later, and everything turns out. So, can definitely get on board with the idea that Legacy is a very skill-intensive format, and it's hard to see that necessarily applied to Standard, at least right now, even though I do think it's,
I think it's a little... Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Finish what you were saying, Bing. It's hard for me to tell when you're done.
There's still a lot of play in Standard.
Yeah, I think the decision tree is varied enough, at least in Delver, that it's kind of skill-intensive because you have so many options. But I agree with said sort of overarching point. I just think, like, the Eternal formats are faster, which gives you access to more options sooner, which sort of by definition gives you a broader, more branching decision tree. Like, there are more things you can do, so it's harder to pick the optimal one.
Not to derail the conversation, but is Peg Leg in the Standard event?
Yeah. That's Mike McGee, for anyone who doesn't remember him.
Yeah, he used to play, like, all the time, right? He was one of the, like, original...
He played a lot when
guys.
Wake was big. He played a lot when Wake was big.
I can't
I wasn't
believe
actually...
I'm about to call him old school, but I'm about to call him old school.
Yeah, I mean, he's not the shining joy to me that JSS Superstar Brett Blackman is. Also,
Yeah.
I've heard other people call him JSS Superstar Brett Blackman, and that warms the cold dead cockles in my heart. Like,
Right, because Brett had Gelgip, right?
yes,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
correct.
Although I'm really sad that I lost the password to the actual account called JSS Superstar Brett Blackman.
I remember that account.
I think you could get it back. Wizard support is pretty good as long as you're okay with setting aside an afternoon.
Right.
Just setting aside 4 hours of your time to get that password.
Yeah.
That's all.
I mean, do you think you could you refund request them for like a service call? Could you be like, okay, so this is my hourly, and it took you, I don't know, they've always been pretty good to me for refunds.
Must be nice.
Ooh, you mean like invoicing them for time?
Yeah.
Just like, I'm
Just
sorry,
send them the bill for 4 hours of
I
your
bill
time.
out at $300 an hour. Please give me $1,200 for the 4 hours I spent on support.
I think you'd have to go with like your MODO win rate. I don't think you'd be able to say, look, I am a lawyer. My time is worth this much objectively.
Oh, plus give me 2 packs.
Yeah, you'd have to be like, I would like $8, sir. And then when they gave it to you, you could pump the fist and think you were winning.
What's the worst that can happen? All they can say is no.
Right.
I heard of some people getting banned for like fraudulent refund requests. I think that is a thing which can occur. I know someone came into my chat like a week ago, and he was really mad because someone like agreed to split with him and then just no-sirred him, like he packed and then he didn't get any product or whatever. And he said he wanted to report them, and I was like, that is not a good plan. Like you will not be happy with the outcome of what happens there. And he just did it anyway, and they banned him for like a
Yeah,
month.
obviously. Yeah. Kindly leave.
That guy punted.
Which
Are you
Speaking
sure?
of refund request punts, Jarvis once submitted a refund request for a bug
Oh my
where
god.
one of his accounts was playing one of his other accounts in a draft, and he sent a screenshot.
Jarvis,
And then
how'd
he
that
got
turn
banned for
out?
30 days.
That did not turn out well.
Oh, that's strange. You're unlucky.
these
I know, very
are the
unlucky.
things you need to learn before you get to the Pro Tour, boys and girls. You need to learn not to send in those refund requests when you are both players playing in a match.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, don't get me wrong. I used to double fist quite a bit with Kithkin like 3 years ago in the same PE, mind you. I've definitely top-aided the same PE on 2 accounts with the same 75 cards, but
Well-
never once have I been paired against myself.
I mean, I don't know if said you remember, like, back in the Prismatic days when we used to run, like, we would be somewhere in between, like, 9 and 10 of the 16 accounts registered for the event. And we would be like,
Adam,
yes?
there was the one premiere event where in the top 8, I played against 3 of Shaver's account in a row in the quarters, semis, and the finals.
Yeah, I just remember, like, we would be everyone who was 2-0, and there would be, like, one dude who wasn't, and we'd be like, how can we get him to not top 8? Like, how can we kick this one guy out to get someone else's 4th account in?
so that we may continue complete domination.
Yeah, I mean, it was a fun format. It was good times.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah, so the
Remember
top
getting
8...
a second account and putting 75. Was it 250? I think I may have had to put like 250 basic lands on the account so that I could enter to get the event to fire someday. And then like you'd always get paired against a friend, so you just conceded match and it was fine.
Yeah. So the top 8 for this Phoenix thing, I don't want to like forever reminisce. The top 8 of this Phoenix thing is 4 Delvers, a green-red, a tokens, a blue-black and a Niapod, I feel like that's a somewhat reasonable representation of the online metagame, like 50% Delver, 50% various other somewhat reasonable things that aren't Delver. Does anyone disagree? I feel like everyone but Cedric would probably agree with that. Is that accurate?
Yeah, even I agree with that. Like, I think that I have an article coming out tonight at midnight on Star City about ramp, just me top scoring and like the card choices and that sort of thing, which might bring an uptick to the deck. But it's criminally underplayed for how good its Delver matchup is, which is like 51-49 or whatever. Like, it's super close.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
51,
So a very
49,
good,
huh?
a very good Delver match is just
It's
above 50%.
slightly better than a coin flip.
I mean,
Well, I actually
probably
think,
the
I actually
best
think I'm
deck
on the
against
49%
Delver, right?
end of that, by the way.
Oh,
I totally agree with everything he just said. I think it's 100% accurate. Like,
Yeah.
I think Ramp has a very solid Delver matchup, and yeah, seems reasonable. I don't understand why you won't just, like, what it is about you that compels you to hurt yourself. Like, why do you hurt yourself, Cedric? Why won't you just play Delver? Like, you know you'd play it better than the other people.
No, actually, the thing is, I know I won't play Delver better than the other people because I don't play blue card selection decks like that very well at all. And when, let's say I start 5-0 and then I make a mistake to be like 5-1 and like miss like a point of damage or come up like a draw step short because I didn't look at something 3 turns earlier, then I just go on complete stone monkey tilt and I can't win the tournament anymore.
It's funny because you actually just exactly described my last MOCS. Like, I think that was exactly how it went. Except I don't know if I went on complete stone monkey tilt, but I definitely then just lost back-to-back matches to Ramp and went from like 5-0 to 5-3 instantly. But,
so that's
yeah.
why I never play. That's why I never play a deck like Delver or Fairies or Threshold or whatever. It's just because if I like make a minor mistake, like I ponder wrong, like, and it's just like a very close decision, and then like 3 turns down the road, I like kept with ponder, and something changed, and I realized it's wrong. I'm just gonna want to die. So I'd rather just play this stupid Primeval Titan deck and blow up stuff and get some Glimmer Post and know that I'm playing every turn correct.
I am on board with that. That seems totally reasonable to me.
So you take all your mistakes from the entire event and just compress them into deck selection. And once you get past that,
That's wonderful.
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Oh, jeez.
I've never been the guy who plays the Tier 1 deck. I'm never going to be that guy. I don't like being gunned for at a tournament, so.
Yeah, that's fine.
right.
I'm
But
okay
the
with that.
Tier 1 deck is Tier 1 for a reason, right? Like, Dredge was the Tier 1 deck for a while, and everyone was gunning for it, but it just shrugged off all the hate. And, you're going to lose a match sometime where someone just has gone completely overboard, but all the reasonable players that have a reasonable amount of things, you're going to crush.
Have you met Cedric?
Yeah, I mean, there's no argument on my end. Like, Delver is far and away the best deck. I would never tell someone not to play it. Like, right now, my roommate's like, what deck should I play instead? And I'm like, you should just play Delver. And he's like, well, you're playing Ramp. Why don't you just play Delver? I'm just, do as I say, not as I do. I'm batshit crazy. And I know that. So, like, I will, that's just how I am. Like, I would rather play the deck that is, like, Tier 1.5 that people realize is, like, kind of good, but aren't sure exactly how good it is. And I'd rather play that deck and then show them how good it is. Like I did with, like, Dredge in Oakland or, like, Poison at PT Philly, where, like, the deck is way better than people think it is, but no one, like, respectable or commendable, like, plays the deck or writes about it. I'd rather be that guy.
I think
I'm
Poison was
totally
actually the
fine with
best
that.
deck for that tournament. In
I
retrospect.
think Poison was far and away the best deck in that tournament. But everyone
Yeah.
thought that, like,
I think
Everyone
the
thought
Zudek
that
was
like
better.
whatever Shiv and Reef combo deck that they were playing was the best deck, or like 12 post.
The Zudek was just amazing. Like, it
Eh,
didn't seem amazing, but then the MODO metagame after that PT was the Zudek. Like, it was 60% Zudek, 20% maybe Poison deck who all lost to the Zudek, and then maybe 20% of people trying to do something else and losing to the Zudek. And eventually it was just more Zudeks. And then I put Slay in my Zudek, because
Aminals.
that was where the metagame was.
Because it got
So-
super
It's super what?
inbred.
inbred. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there just wasn't another deck. It was just Fish with all the right cards. And that's a really powerful archetype.
That's fair.
So I don't want to step on Cedric's article, but can we have a sort of a brief rundown of how you murdered people in the PTQ? Because I'm somewhat curious about that.
Oh, well, my article isn't like a tournament report. It's just like about the deck and that sort of thing. So, I can definitely go over that.
Well, where did the deck come from? Sorry, I don't. All right, why don't you just go into it and then we can
Okay.
do it after.
John Cuvier, a guy in Florida, who most of you guys don't know, but I've been acquaintances with for about 5 years. He designed the deck and lost in the finals of the PTQ on Saturday in Florida. He has lost now in the finals of 11 PTQs. So, if you don't know who that is, that's the reason why. Because he's only played in 3 or 4 PTs when he should have been playing in probably 10 or 11 PTs by now. But he designed that deck. He also designed the lone deck that Bronson Magnan won that GP in Lincoln with. So those are just some of what he's done. But anyway, I got his deck list because I didn't want to play Mono Greed AIDS again. And after, I just went into it pretty cold. I'd never played the deck before. Talking about sideboarding and just card choices and that sort of thing. And just went to battle. And everything just kind of came together. I learned I understood the deck after the first 3 rounds on what I want to do against Delver and other matchups, and I ended up beating Delver 5 times. I lost to Bing playing Delver. That was my only Delver loss, and my deck felt incredible the entire day that I played with it. So as I got to round 7 or 8, I was pretty sure that I wasn't going to do very much losing because there was a lot of Delver at the top tables. I did want to play against Lucindo's Esper deck because I just wasn't sure what his card choices were. But besides that, I think that this is the best ramp list right now until some things change.
Enough. So how long ago, because I played against a ramp list with Glimmer Posts in it, I played against WWE HBK 2 weeks ago or something like that, playing a deck like this. I don't know if you know who that is. He's been around forever.
Milton
I don't know
Figueroa.
who it actually is. Who?
Milton Figueroa. He's from Florida.
Okay, so it came from the same place then?
He's a different guy. He's not affiliated with those guys. But he used to be a Versus player. He also plays the wildcard games, so
Right.
I know who he is.
I know, because I used to play against him 7 years ago or whatever when I played all the time.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I played against a very similar list to this, so it was weird to me that everyone was like, well, I've never seen this before, because I have seen this before. But yeah, I don't know. It seems like it's... How do you feel like it is against Control? Because I played 1 day of ramp and actually wanted to die whenever my opponent wasn't trying to kill me with Grizzly Bears. So, is that do you feel completely differently, or?
Well, I think it's just about role assessment. If you look at Lucindo's list and he has no counter magic and no spot removal to kill Inkmoth Nexus, if people copy that deck, then you can design your game plan accordingly. Obviously, in the top 4, I was going in blind, but I figured out through replays that he didn't have Leak, but I wasn't sure, if he had Doomblade or how many O-rings, that sort of thing. But once you figure out what the deck list is and people start copying it, the matchup, I played against it earlier in the first DE, and I just crushed the guy because all you're trying to do is deal a couple points of damage here and there with Solemn and Huntmaster and that sort of thing, and then just line them up with a Devil's Play or line them up with a Kessig Wolf Run for the turn. And that's pretty much it because they can't gain any life. So, if you're playing against blue-black, you're probably going to lose because blue-black is like tailor-made to beat that kind of deck. But other control decks that don't have like a lot of counter magic and have to like diversify their removal spells and stuff like that, I don't feel like they're that bad of a matchup.
Okay. So what I'm hearing essentially. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just about to say, a lot of that is these control decks get cover from each other because everyone's playing a different list. I mean, with Delver, if you see an Invisible Stalker, you basically know 59 of the other cards, or 55 of the other 60 cards in their deck. With Esper or even Blue-Black to some degree, if you see some of the cards of the deck, you need to see, maybe 30 cards in order to get an idea of what the 45 looks like, let alone the 60. So you're never going to be able to outguess them without having 8 rounds of replays available to you, which is a pretty big deck, a pretty big handicap if that's what your game plan is.
No, I definitely agree with you.
What I was going to say was just like, you feel like the control decks basically have to sell out so hard to like board commitment type of stuff to try and keep up with the Delver decks that they just don't have the tools to really punish you for being a ramp deck. Is that
they just don't have as many. Like if you look at Lucindo's deck list, he has like 3 Ratchet Bombs main deck, which are like bricks.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now.
Yeah, he's got 3 Deadweights main deck that are bricks and just stuff like that. And so he's basically conceding game 1. And, like, game 2, I mean, my sideboard has, like, 6 or 7 cards I want to bring in against that kind of control deck. And his deck will be, better set up to beat mine, too, to the point where I feel like I'm kind of a dog in the sideboarded games. But he's already basically given me a free one, so I think winning 1 out of the next 2 is pretty reasonable. But, as Bing said, and I believe it was Bing, you don't really know every card in their deck. Like, next week he may change 7 cards, and then I'll be playing against an outdated list, and I might run a Titan face forward into a Mana League. So, that's where it gets difficult.
Okay, fair enough. Can we hear about Bing's exciting gladiatorial run through both PTQs, in which he actually killed all of the, like, older men and, like, fighting men of an entire continent? Like, he just killed everyone? Ha! Everyone died?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much there's to, I don't know how much there's to say. Like, I spent a lot of the season playing non-Delver decks. In Worlds, I played Pod Ramp, which was not the best deck, but it was fine. Illusions, the Delver deck was still Illusions, which was a lot mopier than it was now, even though it was probably still the best deck there, too. So Ramp Pod was fine. Then, I didn't do, I was focusing a lot on Modern for the previous PTQ season, so I never really had a reason to look that deep into Standard. The last couple of weeks, I finally just gave in and realized that Delver was the best deck, and I should just play this. Jarvis gave me the list. I like this list a lot better than the David Kaplan list that's kind of super inbred just to get the Sword and the Stalker in play. Mm-hmm. I think this list, Jarvis's list, the list I played, had a lot more play to it, that you weren't in these situations where you're just trying to goldfish them, but you're really interacting with them, and you also have a fair degree of control over how the games go. I also liked it. I also played the Yuya Watanabe list that placed like 8 people in the top 8 of the one where he won. The no probe one, and I mean, it was a good list, but I don't think it was. It didn't work that well.
Cedric, are you doing woodworking?
Shut up.
So anyway, Jarvis gave me this list. Like I said, it's a pretty stock list. It looks a lot like the lists that were big, finalized a couple months ago. Ben Friedman's list, Matt Costa's list from Baltimore.
Yeah, I'll throw it up on the screen if people are watching.
It's pretty straightforward in that, you have a game plan. It's pretty easy to see what cards you side out. I know you and Jarvis are kind of at end as to how good Gut Shot and Manalik are in the mirror.
Yeah.
Certainly I agree with you that...
I think that we don't agree on.
Right. So, it's not that the deck plays itself, but it's clear if you're familiar with these type of decks, what you want to do and what's important and what's not important, which I think is the biggest skill to know of when you know what's important and what's not important, it shapes the way you play the next several turns. And I think that directly led to my losses in both PTQ top 8s, where in the first top 8, I was handicapped on mana and had several choices of what to do with the scant mana I had available. And in 3 different times, or two of the 3 punts I think I made in that top 8 were just picking the wrong play. In the second PTQ top 8, I didn't counter something because I thought it wasn't important, and it turned out to be the thing that dealt me 20 points of damage. So, I'm not sure there were any super interesting spots besides, kind of the very, very technical and very navel-gazing plays that you can, pull out from round 7, game 2, turn 5. But I think, overall, it's a very streamlined list. It's clearly the best deck. There are a lot of things people throw out to try to beat you, but you can beat if you just
where'd he go?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's about it. I don't know if you have any specific things you want to talk about over the 2 days. Clearly, I did very well, and I think I definitely overperformed because, going, 9-0, virtual 9-0 on day 1, and day 2 was 7-2. So, ran pretty well even with a good list.
Mm-hmm. I'm a little curious about just sort of from a metagame perspective, what did you play against? What were the things you killed while you were killing everyone?
I think there's something that stood out to me as being very odd. I didn't play against any humans, for one, which I guess is the one thing that sticks out. It was all basically flavors of Delver, Spirits, Esper, Ramp, and Red-Green Aggro. Did not play any humans. Did not play any Mono Red, which I understand is coming back to some degree.
LOL.
No Frights.
Hey, did you guys know that Timely Reinforcements is a card? Because it is. Oh, baby, is it?
Mono Red is so bad.
Yeah, that's basically it. Nothing too exciting. It's basically just a pretty fair proportion of the metagame. And, I do have to say that Esper really surprised me with its resilience. I know I've been talking about it for a while, but the Deadweight Sun Titan interaction is, something that I think kind of puts it over the top to some degree and maybe not pushes it over the top, but pushes it near the top to respectability, where for those of you who don't know, Deadweight kills Delver on turn 1. It can kill Delver on turn 2 even after it flips. But the most important thing, or maybe the second most important thing to killing Delver is that it can kill a Stalker or it can kill a Geist of Stain Trapped if it's in your yard and you bring it back with the Sun Titan, because you're not actually targeting anything. And a lot of the times, the problem with those decks were that you only had a few answers to hexproof creatures, and that was to counter them with Mana Leak or to kill them with Day of Judgment. And it always meant you had to have the right answer at the right time, or also meant that you could get overloaded if they just had a number of hexproof creatures they played in a row. This just gives you a little more flexibility of more of your answers answer more things, which means that you aren't bottlenecked for answers, and you also, your answers match up better with their threats, just more often. So it's a pretty nice innovation to a deck, which I think possibly makes it, it makes it an okay deck to play, I think.
Okay. I don't really have anything to add to that.
Then you say the best things.
Good.
I've played a bunch of, or at least a little bit of MJ's, like Michael Jacobs' Esper list, because he sort of popped up around my stream, and we had a couple of discussions about it. The only part about which we disagree is like how good you are versus Delver. Like his stance, as I understand it in the argument, and I don't want to misrepresent him, but as I understand his stance is something like, well, I've 4-0'd these DEs, so it must be good, and my stance is, like, those don't necessarily follow at all, so...
I would agree with your stance.
Yeah, like, his list it doesn't have Sun Titan, and it doesn't have Deadweight, but I think you get to a point where your matchup is kind of okay against Delver, and if it was good, then your deck would be good. But it's not, so your deck isn't really.
Like, I really think that Lucindo's deck is set up really, really nicely against Delver. I'm sure he played against it a lot, and that's one of the best players on MODO. So, I'm not surprised if he has a really good deck list against that deck at all.
I mean, I guess one thing I would say about NJ's list is that, I have the greatest respect for him as a player and a deck builder, but I think the decks he builds for MODO and the decks he builds for real events are very different.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
The decks you see him playing have any number of 1/1s, half of which are patently embarrassing. That he's playing
any number of 1/1s.
Right, and it's either because they're fun to play or he's testing them out. But you can tell that with 2 or 3 days of really working on the deck, he would have whittled them out to a much cleaner 75. But none of the shows up on the decks he plays on the stream or in events on MODO.
Hey, he just wants to have fun.
I mean, yeah, like,
which
I'm
is fair.
totally okay with having fun.
Oh, you're pro fun?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pro fun. I just don't think you can sell it as like this is the best deck because I enjoy casting Arcslogger. Like you should be straight up about it. If you're gonna cast, like, if you're just gonna goof around, you shouldn't tell people like, well, this is the best deck. Like, you should just be like, no, I just fucking Arcslogger. It's fun. Like, it's an electric porcupine. How do you say no? So I don't know. That's what I think.
I mean, I could never get away from Arcslogger, so I understand.
Yeah.
It probably is the best deck if it has Arcslogger.
I agree.
I mean, I don't see how it couldn't be. I'm sort of interested in the minute differences between like Jarvis's Delver list and Kaplan's Delver list and like how that plays against the field, but I'm not at all certain that anyone else in the universe who isn't me is interested in that, so like I kind of almost don't want to go into it.
I'm interested.
I mean,
I'm sort of fascinated by the last 6 cards in Delver, because they seem
Right.
so random and like it's like you run out of cards that are actually for Delver, and then you have 6 more, and all the different lists pick different ones.
Well, I mean, it would be helpful if you would give like the headlines of how they make the deck play different.
I mean, my understanding of the Kaplan list, and certainly this is a very imperfect understanding, but my understanding is that you're sacrificing post-board value and the ability to interact, essentially, to try and have a favorable game 1 against aggro decks. Like, you're trying to just get random wins, basically, because card X plus card Y equals opponent dead. And, like, both card X and card Y are miserable by themselves, but, like, together equals Exodia, and then they fall over. So...
Right. To clarify to everyone, Kaplan's list is the one that has 4 Sword of War and Peace,
4 swords in the main deck and 4 stalkers. So you're just like, I hope I draw this one, and I draw this one, and then I put this one on top of this one, and then my opponent goes from vertical to horizontal. Like, that's your hope.
I believe he played that list in Honolulu as well and didn't do very well with it. Like, almost the exact same thing, 4 Stalker, 4 Sword.
Sure. Seems reasonable. I wasn't playing it because I thought that, like, for sure it was the best thing, and like, it must be better than all the other options. I just sort of wanted to see how it was, thought it was okay, and then never started losing. Like, I'm sure you guys are familiar with that as people who play a bunch of MODO, where you're just like, yeah, this seems alright. I mean, I'm winning, like, a lot, so I guess fine, whatever. Like, and that's sort of where I got to with that list. Like, I think it's better game 1 than this list in the mirror, which is big for me. I think it's worst post-board against, like, the entire field, because there are a lot of decks where you just don't want to have 4 of those cards in your deck post-board, because they bring in, like, Grudge totally ruins your whole plan. Like, if they have Grudge in their 75 and board it in, it's just like your plan goes from kind of okay to completely shit-awful if they draw that card. So you want to board them all out, but you don't have enough cards to bring in, and it gets a little awkward post-board. But I think both lists are close enough that I'm not certain which one is better.
Could be that a list that's bad post-board is just a little bit worse at a PT, whereas a list that has the better post-board stuff, you know, gets the edge at a PT where you're playing 5 games in the top 8. Might be that simple.
I mean, maybe. Like, this list definitely has more room for you to play Magic with your opponent, because Sword of War and Peace and Invisible Stalker are not particularly interactive cards. Like, they are put them on the table and hope your opponent has no answers cards. So this one definitely, like, the Kaplan list kind of makes me want to vomit just conceptually, because that's the kind of person I am with regards to deck, like, to game design and stuff, but I'm not sure that actually has a bearing on, like, which one is the better Magic deck if your goal is to win the most matches.
I think it's also a metagame call, really. Like, one may not be strictly better than the other. It might just depend on what you expect to show up.
Sure.
What if you just, like, took 3 cards from one and 3 cards from the other and just ran it?
We just ran, like, four Stalkers, one Batterskull, 1 Pike, and some Thought Scours. I think that would end poorly for us.
Yeah, I don't think that would be very good.
I really don't know if there's... I mean, I wouldn't do exactly what you just said, but what if you ran 3 Stalkers, 3 Sword of War and Peace, and 2 cards from your list that you feel like are missing? Would that really be, like, a completely different deck, or is it just, like...
I mean, it would probably be close enough that, like, it wouldn't make a huge difference in how your games play out. It's just that the idea of it makes me want to throw up.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like it's the same deck and the last 6 cards don't make a huge difference, and people go to the 2 extremes because they feel in some way like there are 2 different strategies and one strategy is correct. But if you're in a situation where you, like, literally don't know which one of those decks is better, and you think it's just like a metagame sort of decision maybe, and you're not sure, then why not just, like, play both?
I mean, I think
just mix it.
I mean,
Like, the last
I
cards
think
build
part
on
of-
each other.
Yeah, and I think the part of the problem is that that's exactly right. They build on each other. They each go towards differing aims of how you play the game. They aren't cards like...
No, bad, Cedric, bad.
What'd I do? What'd I do?
It's like, I don't know, when
Nobody
Big starts
knows.
talking, you turn into this swirling maelstrom of static. It's very weird.
I don't know why that happens.
Is it only with Bing? It might only be with Bing. It's bizarre.
I don't know, it's very weird. I assume it's not something you can actually control, but...
I know where you're going with this point, Bing, but I'm not sure that I agree. I don't know. Like,
Well, like, I don't understand...
what you're talking about is very minute.
Like, how can playing more stalkers be better if you have fewer, like, things to put on the stalker? Like, the whole point of the
No,
stalker
you
is...
just play
with
one
the
more
game.
stalker and one more equipment instead of playing two more stalkers and two more equipment.
Okay,
I
but
mean,
then
you're playing
Stalker-
Invisible Stalker in your deck, and you're
versus
playing
Invisible
equipment in your deck. How can you think that it's, you should go to 2 Invisible Stalker and 3 equipment, but it's wrong to go to 0 and 0 or 4 and 4, and 3 and 3 is also wrong, and
Well,
1
I
and
don't-
1 is not
Like,
an
I don't
option.
think it'll make a huge difference, but the point of the deck, like the Kaplan deck, is that Stalker is dicks when you don't have equipment, but it's insane when you do. And
Well,
like,
then how can
that-
you be playing 2 Stalker and a few equipment and think that adding 1 more Stalker and 1 more equipment just automatically makes the deck worse? It seems like it would just make
Because the
almost
whole
no
point
difference.
of the card is that it's only good with the other card. So if you add like only a few of them, you are reducing the chances that you will draw them together. Like I don't understand
That's
how.
the deck you're playing, right? Don't you have 2 Invisible Stalker in your deck right now?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so...
Like the reason they're
so
there is
isn't
because they
Invisible
suck,
Stalker
but there's
deck
nothing else
then
to play.
your equipment deck? Alright. So,
And
I
you
mean, I
guys,
think
you guys actually still wonder why I don't play Delver? Are you serious?
I mean, if it's because you hate Invisible Stalker, I'm totally on board with that too. Like, card may be my least favorite card of the last 5 years. So,
I love Invisible Stalker. It's one of
Oh
my
my
favorite
God.
cards.
I hope you get
What?
hit by a truck.
Get out.
What,
Just
no
go.
one believes me? Ask anyone. I was taking Invisible Stalker over Bloodline Keeper in 8-4s, and proud to do it. I don't want to play interactive Magic with you. Okay?
Is it because of me personally? Like, if I changed in some way, would you want to play interactive Magic with me
Hold
then?
on. Did we just claim that Bloodline Keeper was interactive? Did that just happen?
I didn't claim that. I promise.
It sounded like you claimed that.
I just claimed that I don't want to play interactive Magic with you or anyone else. That's all.
Alright, fair enough.
And that's how I want to keep it.
I feel like Cedric telling people that he does not want to play Magic with them is like a good rap on that segment. Is that accurate? Like,
That'll do it.
So to
That'll
summarize
do
what I was
it.
saying, I think that the value of Invisible Stalker is very low if you have 2 and you're putting it in because there's no better card. The value of Invisible Stalker is going to get slightly higher as you add more Invisible Stalkers and more equipment, up to Invisible Stalker being max value if you have 4 and lots of equipment. But I don't think that there's necessarily something wrong with having 3 and 3. I think you'll have a slightly better Invisible Stalker, but you won't have so many dick cards in your deck. That's basically my feeling. Now we can move
So,
on.
I mean, so what you're saying is that Brainstorm needs to be in Standard. And that'll solve all our
What?
problems.
Yeah, let's do
Is that what I said?
idea.
that's not how you pronounce Arc
I thought
Slaughter.
Ponder-
That's completely
I
different.
thought Ponder wasn't standard.
No, Brainstorm.
Jace
would-
isn't standard
Brain-
too.
Well, here's
Oh, man,
here's
this would be pretty...
card would be okay. Here's a somewhat interesting question. Do you feel like Delver is the best card in your deck, or Ponder is the best card in your deck? Because I sort of feel Ponder is like by far the best card in this deck.
I think Delver is easily the best card. I think people
Yeah, I
just
mean-
do not understand how good Delver is. They cannot wrap their heads around it. They just don't get it somehow. But it's so good.
It's so good. Like, I love Ponder, but Ponder draws me, like, Ponder makes Delver great. Yeah, I don't know. It's
I mean, it's not
Delver.
like it's not a relevant question because clearly you just play all 8 and like herp a derp, but I don't know.
If
Derp.
Delver, if you had like no deck stacking in that deck at all, you just had Delver and 20 instants and sorceries, or however many you have.
Card would still be absurd, yes.
I mean, I think it would be like a 1.6 mana Moon Heron on average, or something like that.
Yeah, people just don't
That's
like
about
they don't
worth it.
understand that when you don't ponder, like a third of your deck will still turn it into a 3/2. They're like, oh my god, he got so lucky, he turned it over on turn 2, and you're like, you realize there's a 1 in 3 chance it turns over every turn by itself, right? Like, it just turns into a 3/2 and then punches you and takes your lunch money, and people just don't realize that. Like, I feel like that's the heart of my disagreement with MJ about the Esper deck, is that, like, whenever he loses, he's like, they had the nuts, and I'm like, you mean the top 50% of their draws? Yes, he had that. Like, I don't know, like...
That's why people
not
play
really-
the deck, MJ.
Yeah, like, I don't know, that's what I think people don't understand about Delver. Like, when they lose, they're just like, oh, he got so lucky, and it's like, no, it's not actually so lucky if it's just within the top 50% of their draws. That's actually just what the deck does. Like, your problem is, I hate Delver of Secrets, and it's a stupid card. You have mispronounced it. So...
To be fair, I was in that camp up until Saturday. And then I started whip flaring and slag storming them, and now I'm not of that opinion anymore.
Yeah,
I
mean,
don't know
there are-
about that. I mean, like, Whip Flare is such a clunky card, and so is
Whip Flare's a
Flagstorm.
clunky card?
How is whip flare clunky? It's pyroclasm.
Yeah. That doesn't make any sense, Bing.
No, but
You're bad at you feel bad.
there's so many ways of beating it. I mean, not that
I
the
guess.
card itself.
I think you might be off here, Bing.
You're going to have to explain your
But it's
statement
so
a little
na-
better than... Saying whip flare is clunky
I'm
doesn't
saying-
make a lot of sense.
I'm saying it's narrow, and
Of
that
course it's
there
narrow.
are numbers. Well, that's what I'm saying, is that it's clunky in that, like, this goes back to the threats and answers that I was talking about before, right? Where if you play a series of answers that cover 60 to 80% of the threats that people are going to play against you, or 40 to 60% of the threats that people play against you, and just hope that you have enough coverage by drawing the right threats and the right percentage of threats, or right percentage of answers to their first threat, answers to their second threat, and then things that will actually kill them. The more patchwork that becomes, the worse your deck is. And I feel like Whip Flare is the hallmark of that kind of, like, Whip Flare and Black Sun Zenith, a little less. Tribute to Hunger are all cards that don't really do what you want them to do all the time.
Are you saying,
And it makes
like,
your
you'd
deck
rather
funky, even if the card is not funky.
Are you saying you'd rather have threats than answers? Like, is that where we were going? Oh god, the Tempest attack. Was it just, like, restating the whole there are no wrong threats thing? Was that the idea?
No, I mean, I think that the threat... I mean, I'm saying especially in this standard format, where the threats are so resilient, like, I mean, it's not just a matter of, you know, you have hexproof threats, and you have 4 toughness threats, and you have cheap threats, and you have expensive threats. I feel like the cards that are in standard that people are playing that will kill you are much more varied than they are in an average metagame. And I think part of that's a mistake of Wizards' part. But that's just the way it is. And I think that it being that way means that you especially want to be on the threat side than the answer side.
Like, I'm willing to agree with you that a card like Tribute to Hunger and a card like Black Sun Zenith are, like, kind of narrow, don't really do what you want them to, like, efficiently, and sometimes Tribute is really bad, and other times it's very good. But if you look at Whip Flare in the context of my deck, all it is a Galvanic Blast that is sometimes a lot more than a Galvanic Blast. But it's a Galvanic Blast that can kill a Visible Stalker, and it can kill Knights of Saint Traft. So if you're looking at the card that way, it's actually just fantastic.
I guess that's fair, although I would question how often you actually just want actual Galvanic Blast and Ramp, right? I mean, like, one of the awesome things about Ramp last season was your ability to ignore what the other person was doing and just kill them.
Are we talking about the good Ramp deck now?
Yes, we are.
Like the Valakut one? Because that one was fucking good. Like,
oh, that one was awesome.
Right.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we're not, that's not where we are now, so there's no reason to dwell on what it was when you have to look at what it currently is. Which is, it's not as good as it used to be, obviously.
I'm just saying that deck was... The reason that made the deck tier 1 was because it didn't have to play Galvanic Blast. Not because it didn't have enough Galvanic Blasts.
I think if that format had had Delver of Secrets, it would have been forced to, which is a completely different issue.
Okay.
I mean, the reason that deck is tier 1 is because of its inevitability, and because Primeval Titan was actual 6 mana, the game is over, whereas its 6 mana, the game is pretty close to over in this deck, but in the other version, it was, okay, like, you're dead, you lose, end of story. So, I mean, they're just completely different metagames. I don't think that you can compare the two decks at all, because they're pretty different decks and pretty different metagames, and the similarities are that they're ramping and trying to cast Primeval Titan earlier and ahead of schedule. I think that's where the similarities end.
I don't really think that you would go to Blast last season for Delver. I think you would go to, like, Antelope or something. You could just gain 12 life. What was the Antelope card that had 2 life gains for Lantel? Yeah, whatever that guy was. I mean, the strength of that deck was Green Sun Zenith as well. You had access to massive amounts of life gain just in a one-off. And I think that would be your answer to Delver rather than a Blast.
Well, it's not really relevant.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible, but I don't think that that's true either.
I was playing it main. I convinced Bing, if I remember correctly.
I love that deck. I think that deck was great.
What?
Certainly do not know how good that deck would be now, though.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's sort of an interesting abstraction, but I'm not sure that it actually applies to any of the discussions we're having. Like, we can talk about how the deck in the current standard would beat a deck in the old standard, but like,
I think it's very worth talking about because it speaks to the ramp deck that we're playing now. Like, why is our ramp deck like this now instead of... Like, I would just not have... I took the Galvanic Blast out of Valakut straight away because Valakut needed, 18 threats and 24 lands and a bunch of acceleration. There wasn't room for a, card that just made the deck crappy. You didn't have enough green sources either. There were all these things you had to pack into your deck, and there wasn't enough room to make cards 59 and 60 just okay, I don't lose as much Delver of Secrets. You had your own plan. And so... it's interesting to me that a ramp deck in this format would say, I am giving away whatever 2% God draws so that I can sort of answer Delver of Secrets.
I mean,
and maybe it has to. But...
you're giving away 2% God draws so that you aren't dead by the time you cast your best card.
Does Delver kill you that quickly?
Yes. The answer is yes.
The answer is 100% yes, because every time... the reason that you guys are winning a lot with Delver is because... And I notice this a lot when I watch replays. It's someone will try to get 2-for-1 with their Slackstorm or with their Whip Flare.
They're so greedy.
Or
they're all so greedy.
They're not looking at Slackstorm as Whip Flare as what they should in that matchup, which is just an overcost of Galvanic Blast. It's just a 1-for-1.
Yeah, I agree. God,
That's
how'd
all
you
it is.
get so smart, Cedric.
But you can
Well,
just
that's right.
hide it on turn 4, like, all the time.
Because
Do they really have
but the
big
problem-
boys?
Go ahead.
I think part of the problem is that the reason why you're underestimating Delver is also the reason why you're playing Ramp, right? Is that there's a reason why you're not playing Delver in the first place, and that's because you're underestimating the ability that Delver, how fast Delver can kill you, which also leads you to think that you can afford to wait to get 2-for-1s with your Slag Storms and your Whip players.
No, that is what everyone else thinks. The reason that I am beating Delver in every tournament is because I'm not underestimating how fast it can kill me, and that's why I'm trading 1-for-1 with it every time with my cards.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, that's fair.
The shorthand for this, as a side note, for those of you keeping track at home, is good at magic. That's generally how people talk about it when they're like, and it's sort of a stupid point. Sorry, I sort of stepped over you, Bing, but like, people will say stuff like that. They'll be like, well, that guy was terrible. And what they mean by that is more like what Zed is saying a lot of the time. Like, when they say terrible, they don't mean like he added 1 and 1 and got 7. They mean like he had Pyroclasm in his head, and he was like, no, I can get him to extend another guy into this. And then he just died. Like, you need to have those kinds of theoretical understandings and let them guide your play. It can't just be like, okay, here are some creatures on the board, here are some creatures on the other side of the board, find the ideal attacks. Like, you need to have a deeper understanding of the game than that if you want to consistently do well at the top level.
Right.
Well, I think that's a good ending note. Agree? Disagree? Because I have to
I'm
leave.
down. Yeah, I'm ready to let you off the hook, but thanks for stopping by. I think you got a lot of really fascinating things to say, and I say that
bring me
almost
on
entirely
again.
because I agree with all of them.
Oh, that's interesting.
I mean, I figure I should be honest about it, right? Like,
That's
if
fair.
you disagree, you're wrong and bad and should feel bad, but you didn't, so you've done a wonderful job.
That's fair. Thank you.
So yes. Do you guys all want to call it off? Like, should we shut everyone down? I feel like we should go over who everyone is and like where you can see them all at the end, because people may not have been here at the beginning.
That's a good idea. No dissipate.
that was,
Please, God, no dissipate.
I
I really need this card to resolve.
That is the one and the only Cedric Phillips attempting to defeat Ipfan.
He would have countered it by now. It's definitely coming in play. There's no way he's soloing me.
To win his millionth match of Magic in a row, former Pro Tour Top 8 competitor Cedric Phillips, who can be found at www.twitch.tv.
Are you kidding?
www.twitch.tv.
Are you fucking kidding me?
C-E-D-D. It's SETI C-E-D-D-Y-P. Is that correct?
C-E-D-D-Y-P.
Yeah.
Twitch TV. Why would
Yeah.
this guy slow roll that negate? That's unbelievable.
So that is
No, seriously. The board position. He has Snapcaster and Liliana and 3 mana available. I have 2 cards in my hand, a Karn and a Thrun. So I'm just going to cast my Karn, and then obviously, if he counters, it just makes me discard my Thrun to Liliana. So there's like nothing to think about because I only have 2 cards in my hand. He just tanks forever and then finally negates it. What the hell?
I guess I mean, he wanted to inflict maximum damage to you. He wanted to negate for maximum efficiency.
No reason to do
Did
that.
actually say in the chat, like, Ipfan uses negate, it's super effective. Like, that's what should happen in the chat.
Ugh. Now Liliana's on 6. I just want to die.
So our other wizards, we have Moto Phenom and all-around good guy Bing Luke. Do you have anywhere that people can reach you, Bing? Do you wish to cultivate a cult of personality on the internet? Cult.
I guess my Twitter, if you want to follow my Twitter, it's not very exciting, but it's exciting enough.
Your Twitter is Prolepsis9, is that correct?
That's correct.
It's pretty
So,
exciting.
PROLEPSIS9.
That's correct. And I write sometimes at Star City, except I have nothing to write about except for how Delver is awesome, and no one wants to hear that. So.
Right? You can, in fact, find articles by both Cedric and Bing, and occasionally Jarvis, on Magic websites the world over. We have the mighty Jarvis U, who can be reached at JKYU something. Is that correct?
06.
JKYU06 on Twitter. He never talks when we have things, but when he does, he has fascinating things to say. And then we
Jarvis
have...
talked several times.
It's true, he did. He said several things. And we have the mighty Stephen Flavel, a.k.a. Joe and Ribs, who can be found at a string of numbers I do not remember on Twitter. And
931243732.
absolutely,
Yeah.
that thing.
Moron.
And at GainMe's.com, I believe, is where he can be found and where the audio and YouTube uploads of this will be going up, I believe.
Yeah, as well as a slew of other Magic videos, poker videos. I think I have a Sid Meier's colonization walkthrough. You know, you'll find stuff.
And I am, of course, Adam, a winner is you, Ragsdale. I can be found at www.twitch.tv/AWYY and also at winner is you on Twitter. And so yeah, thanks for listening, guys, and thank you to everyone who was here for coming out. I had fun.
Thanks for having me, Adam. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. And Adam will take donations.